Raise your hand if you ever had one of those crystal clear blink of an eye moments where you see the pattern, that there is a pattern. You're like, fudge, why is this keep on happening to me? Today, in this episode of the Scenic Route Podcast, Shadi and I were going to unravel all of the mysteries, why certain things keep on happening and how those are projections of our shadows and how we can do shadow work, become whole again. And we talk about the concept of the self in terms of Jungian psychology. And we're also going to look at how we can transform that and how we can be more spiritual. We're going to look at how our parents shape our perception of the physical world and our spirituality. And it's going to be so interesting. And I can't wait for you to join us. So grab your favorite beverage and let's go. Hi, and welcome to the Scenic Route Podcast, where we believe in embracing life's journey with purpose, curiosity, and a bit of potty humor. I'm one uncool mom, and I'm always looking out for that perfect slice of gluten-free rhubarb pie. Every week, I get the joy of sitting down with dreamers and doers who dare to take the road less traveled in pursuit of their own magic. Together, we dive into the inspiring stories of soulful entrepreneurs and visionary leaders who boldly share their beliefs, lessons, and fuck-ups. Excited? So am I. You're exactly where you're meant to be. And now, let's take this conversation off the beaten track. Shadi Sadeghi is a certified life coach in Jungian psychology and emotion code practitioner with over 15 years of personal development experience. Shadi's method combines depth psychology, Eastern philosophy, social neuroscience, and emotional energy work to take her clients through the beautiful process of awakening to their true selves. Through this mind, body, soul journey of powerful conscious action, coupled with the infinite intelligence of the unconscious mind, she guides men and women all over the world to overcome obstacles with more ease and consciously create more authentic, soul-led relationships and careers. Shadi is a global traveler and recovering corporate professional based in Southern California. Shadi, welcome to the Scenic Route Podcast. How are
Hi,
you?
Jennifer. I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm really excited for today's episode. And maybe if you're going to ask me again how I am in like 45 minutes, that might look different. But
No, never,
but
never.
no, it's all good. Oh, you know what kind of image just comes to mind? Um, you listening, tuning in now, you don't know this, but today we're gonna talk about our relationship to the self, to ourself, and especially also to our shadow self. So it's gonna get deep fast, I suppose. You know what image I just had? I had like a very Greek methodology kind of mental image of like Charon, the ferryman who brings the souls over the river Styx to the underworld. And it
Oh
feels
my
like
God, I
we're,
just got goosebumps. So you saw, so he's male? I don't know this
yeah,
guy. The
yeah.
guy.
No,
Okay.
it's not a god. It's a ferryman actually who
Okay.
brings oh God, my Greek mythology is rusty, but there are two rivers that souls need to cross in order to go to the underworld. Um and to the Hades, the Greek god of the underworld. And so they're crossing the most famous river is the river called Styx, and the ferryman who brings the souls across in the boat is called Charon, and that just came to mind. Um,
Wow, that's very powerful, Jennifer, because I mean, you know what the underworld represents, that represents the underworld of our psyche, right? Our shadow, our
mhm.
individual shadow. And so that is some sort of guide for you. He is some sort of guide to take you there.
Ooh, okay. And there is also a
Based on what you
very
said, I don't know him
yeah,
personally.
I mean, I just there's one really famous black and white picture and like the arts. I don't even know who
And it's
painted it anyway, but it's like that came to mind. We're like, okay, we're gonna go, we're
very
gonna
powerful.
cross the river Styx now. So
Haran,
before I
Haran,
feel
what's
we
his name?
kind of need to hmm?
Sorry, I'm still stuck
Sorry.
on what's his name again?
Charon, Charon.
Okay, cool.
So I feel okay, that's kind of like we're closing the mental bracket of Greek mythology now, and
It's all
and
symbolic. Everything's symbolic. So it's
that's
very useful.
true. That's true.
And I
Yes.
incorporate there's a lot of deciphering of symbolism in the kind of coaching that I do, and with shadow work in general, with this process of becoming your whole true self. So with your dreams, with the vision you just had, that's very powerful. With what we
Mm.
see, I've been seeing the monarch butterfly a lot. That's very symbolic.
Is it kind
So
of like your spiritual animal, or is it?
no, I see it as a symbol from my higher self, because if my mind, because we there might be butterflies around us all the
Hmm.
time, but if our mind is picking it up and seeing it, then it's my soul saying there's a there's a symbol here for you.
Hmm.
It's like a
Hmm.
message. I see it as a message. So I see it as a message from, yes, my higher self, my soul.
Oh, that's very
I
interesting.
also I believe, and we're going to get into this, but I mean, depending on what stage you are at in the level of individuation of the wholeness of the psyche, then you're either experiencing things, or the dreams that are showing up for you and the symbolism that's coming up for you is correlated to just yourself, your
Hmm.
individual. It's like the first layer. But the
Hmm.
deeper you go, then the more you tap into the collective unconscious. And so I've been doing this for years. So
Mm.
typically when I see these kinds of symbols, yes, it pertains to my life, but it also pertains to the collective. So I
Yeah.
see this, wow, I'm like, humanity's going through major transformation right now with the monarch butterfly. That's how I see it.
Ooh. I mean, yeah, we sure are on all levels. I
Yes.
feel like we have to circle back for a wee bit. If anyone tuning in and is like, wait, what, shadow self? So maybe, Shadi, before we go in and I tell you about the weird dream I had just the other night that I still remember, because sometimes I don't really remember them. But anyway, before we get back off track,
No, there's so much, so much.
how do you define the shadow self? And how do you differentiate between the conscious self or the shadow self, or what's the counterpart from the shadow self? How do you like organize all of that?
So so the way, so okay, so my training is based on Jungian psychology, depth psychology, and which is the life's work of Carl Jung, who was Swiss, and as well as a little, I like to say, a little sprinkle of Eastern philosophy, as well as a little dash of neuroscience, social neuroscience,
Mm-hmm.
to help people understand their minds, to help navigate through the depths. Essentially, uh, who you know yourself to be. My name is Shadi. I am a life coach. I'm an energy practitioner. That's things we are aware of. You're
Mm-hmm.
conscious of it.
Yes.
I'm an introvert, or I am, this human design, or I am, fill in the blank, right?
Yeah.
Those are things that we are conscious of. We are only conscious of about 5 to 10% of the totality of who we are. And so a lot of people kind of like, you were saying, with Hades, underworld, it's like there's these dark associations with the shadow self,
Mm-hmm.
which is the part of us that is unconscious, but
Mm.
it's not all dark. That is where our gold lies. That is where, excuse me, that is where our infinite potential is. That is where our infinite power is. That is where our freedom lies. And and if you've studied The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell, for example, it's like this is the path of life where we get the call to go to the underworld, like you
Mm-hmm.
just said. Saying
Mm-hmm.
underworld, I think this is very relevant.
Yeah.
So, which is your unconscious mind. So it's essentially going below the surface. It's looking under the hood of the car, as I like to say it. But
Mm.
I can't do it on my own. You can't do it on your own. Why? Because who's at the door, or who's standing at the, ocean side does not want you to go under. It's our ego.
Mm.
So our
Yeah.
ego
Our conscious
is
mind.
right. So it is
Yeah.
an aspect of our conscious mind. So it
Yeah.
is the gatekeeper that says, under no circumstances are you to change or grow.
He's the
Or
meanest bouncer in all the world.
he's not. Yes, I call him a bouncer too. It's funny you say that. That part of ourselves only knows survival
Hmm.
and staying in your comfort zone. That's all it knows.
Yeah,
And so
because
if
that's
there's
familiar, that's
anything
safety.
outside of
Mm.
that threat to your existence, and you're gonna
Mm.
die. And so, like, that's why it's just protecting you. And I mean, like,
Yeah.
that's what they mean by the ego death. Our ego never dies. You just, it's a step-by-step process. I mean, there's so many people that go, to like towards plant medicine, or they do these extreme ayahuasca retreats where it's like really diving in deep
Hmm.
really quickly. They're like, oh, I went through an ego death. No, like you need to go through a step-by-step process of learning who you are with curiosity, with non-judgment, of looking under the hood, going
Yeah.
under the surface, and accepting and being okay with those parts of yourself. And
Mm.
the ego is by your side. That's what I do. So, like with the
Yeah.
coaching, this like having a guide, a mentor, a coach, a shaman, whatever,
Yeah.
is really important because they're holding your hand, and your ego is going to be your ally. Your ego is going to be the part of you that is going to drive you in
Yeah.
this planet, on this, on Earth. But in the beginning, it has resistance, and that's normal.
Hmm. Mm. So whenever you started that kind of work, and I mean, I also started to work years ago, so I know the resistance was going strong.
Yes, I get it. I still have resistance, and it takes many shapes. The resistance,
Mm.
the resistance. It's not
Ooh,
just
that's interesting.
it takes it sometimes it's physical. For me, it's physical sometimes.
Mm.
Uh, Meaning like I'm too tired to do the things that I wanted to do, or to show up. In the beginning, this is how it was. Or I would have a mysterious illness, where I would have a fever of like right around 100 degrees every day. So it's like a low grade fever for like 2 weeks.
Mm.
And it kept me from moving forward. And I was like, okay. And I remember the very first week I got a life coach for the very first time, I fell downstairs and I twisted my ankle. So it's like resistance can show, and it's like we're creating our reality at all times.
Mm.
So it could be that we're just like not paying attention or something, and then you burn your hand, and it's like, oh, and it's like it's a form of resistance from,
Yeah, I'm just like there are certain moments in my life when I look back where I kind of like had freak accidents,
yeah.
and it was always very close to moments of big change and
There you go.
uprooting.
There you go.
Um, and interestingly, also, well, I mean, everyone doing the work is like, sure, no surprise. But also when something was going really, really good, then something weird would happen to kind
Totally.
of like,
Yeah.
oh,
Slow you down, pull
body,
you down.
exactly, body doesn't feel
Yeah.
safe when everything is going too well. So we might just adjust, give a bit,
Yeah.
look, I don't know, burn your hand just to kind of like feel safe again.
Totally. Yeah, and that's normal, and it's okay. And it's like it's not about
Mm,
judging the ego or the resistance. It's not about
mm,
being divisive, cutting it out, killing the ego. That's such a misconception, because your ego
mm,
there, it's going to be your best friend and your ally through this process of individuating into your truest, most authentic self. But you don't want it in the driver's seat.
yeah.
You want your soul in the driver's seat, your purpose, your true self in the driver's seat. Your ego is going to be in the passenger side, kind of
Mm.
navigating.
Yes, which makes sense, right? I
Mhm.
agree with I don't want anyone leaving our conversation with the notion of, oh, ego bad, gotta go. Like, I mean, it's a part of us, right? And I feel it's just natural to include it, but like it has to know its place.
Yeah, it's a toddler. Like if you're an adult, you don't want a toddler behind the wheel. You don't want a toddler deciding what you're having for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or how to run your business, or how, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the toddler. It's the toddler in you. It's that inner child that people keep referring to. That's all it
Yeah,
is.
that makes much sense. And sometimes I do like ice cream for breakfast, but it's like
Totally.
we
But
do
and
not
you,
want to have it every
that's your
day,
choice.
all day.
Right. And it's your choice. You have the freedom to choose that. That's a beautiful thing. Yeah. With a little cereal. I mean, that's breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
A little
Mm,
ice
okay. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Okay. Ego,
cream.
maybe tomorrow morning. Come back. Go to
You're
sleep now.
craving it. Yeah, if you're
So,
craving.
when we look at also Jung's version of shadow, and we've said, okay, you said at the beginning, okay, when we look at our shadows, we can learn so much about ourselves. And as it's also like a tool that helps us understand parts of ourselves, hidden fears and desires. Like how can a shadow or how can understanding our shadow self help us understand our hidden fears and desires?
So that's where they live. So imagine it's a Pandora's
Mm.
box or a closet.
We're good. We're again with the mythologies. Yes.
Yeah. That's what the shadow is. It's and so um if we want to get visual, I'm like, I should have had a blackboard. So like if you start with let's look at an iceberg, okay?
Yeah.
The tip of an iceberg is above water and it's just the tip, right? And
Yeah.
then bulk of the iceberg is underwater and we can't
Mm.
see it. So we look at the surface and we think just the tip, oh, that's just the iceberg. That's all. That's the ice. That's the totality. That's
Yeah.
how humans are about the psyche. So
Mm.
we think that, who I am is all that I am, right?
Yeah. The
But,
ego is all that there is.
right. And the ego identity, right. And that's all there
Mhm.
is. But we are actually both. So we are what is under the surface. And in this case, the iceberg below the surface represents the shadow
Mm.
self.
Hmm.
And that leads also to the collective unconscious, the collective shadow as well. So the more conscious we become, the more we integrate and bring the iceberg above the surface to our
Hmm.
awareness, and we become aware of the hidden or repressed or rejected fears or
Mm.
traits about ourselves. If I identify as an introvert, for example, then what's the opposite of that? It's being extroverted. So that's repressed. That goes in Pandora's box. That's below the surface.
Mm.
What happens is my soul will keep putting me in situations to become more extroverted. And I'm going to hate it because I have this conflict because I'm like, no, I'm an introvert. I'm an introvert. I
Yeah.
hate it. I can't stand it because that's repressed. So the mind is always wanting to bring what is repressed and rejected or denied within ourselves
Mm.
to it's wanting to show us, hey, I want to be healed. Healed means to become whole, by the way. It doesn't mean to become fixed. So I want
Yeah,
to
yeah,
be
yeah.
seen
We're not in the business of fixing
of
people.
fixing. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, these bad situations or the resistance that we were talking about, all of these situations are showing us, or if we have conflicts, for example, that's my favorite.
Mm.
Conflicts are the best opportunity to do shadow work, to see what you are repressing, rejecting, or denying about yourself. Why? Because not to become it. It doesn't mean the introvert has to all of a sudden overnight become an extrovert. It's just saying, look at that part of yourself. What's so scary about being an extrovert? Why is that? Why did you push it away? And then you come to realize, through the process, that there was an experience you had during your childhood.
Mm.
Maybe this is a trait you inherited from your parents or your grandparents, and it's not yours. You didn't have the free will to decide whether you want to be an introvert or an extrovert. At the age of 1 or 2 or whatever, if you inherited it, your unconscious mind, your ego really decided it is only safe for me to be an introvert. That's going to be my
Hmm.
identity.
Hmm.
Anything
In
that's
order
outside
to keep me alive as an infant, as a
or
toddler, I'm an introvert.
socially accepted in good standing in my school,
Yeah.
in
Which
class, whatever.
is which is life or death as well, right? The mind doesn't
Exactly.
differentiate.
Exactly. Yes, I love that you know this. Yes, exactly. So the mind sees that as like, oh shit, if I'm not
Yeah.
part of the tribe, I'm gonna die. Sorry, I didn't know if I can curse. I curse sometimes.
Oh God, yes, please.
Okay.
I'm an
So
X-rated podcast.
I love it. Good. So it doesn't mean that by, exploring that side of yourself, and it's not just up here, by the way, it's not just an intellectual exploration of going underneath the surface or in Pandora's box. The way that it expresses itself is through feeling, and it feels really freaking uncomfortable because typically what a coach will do, and, a coach will ask you to come up with an action to put you in more environments where you're going to be an extrovert. So it feels really uncomfortable to an introvert. Now I'm using this introvert extrovert
That's a good
example.
example, yes.
So so it feels really uncomfortable. Like there's a lot of fear, like you start sweating, you have a visceral reaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's because you are touching the borders of that boundary between the consciousness and the unconscious part of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And the ego is like, whoa, 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 where are we
Yeah,
going?
bouncer mode. No.
Yeah, right. I'm at the door. You can't pass this threshold. We're entering territory where your life is at risk. And so then the stories start. You look like an idiot. What are you doing? Who do you think you are? You look at your outfit. You're, you don't know anyone here. Da, 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 da. All these stories. That's the ego goes into full gear and gets loud and is wanting to stop you. So what do most people do? Most people retract. They stop. They pull back because
Yeah.
they think the ego is right. They're like, oh my God, I look terrible. I am not, I don't know what's the topic of discussion. What do I say? What do I do? So they start buying into the stories and they pull back and they retract. And then they go through their lives really staying split.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Jung said. We're split. And
Mm-hmm.
so then it's right around midlife for most people. And now that midlife age or whatever, that's how Jung saw it. Now it's getting younger. So I'm noticing in general and with my clients as well, right around people are waking up earlier, at least hitting that wall earlier, like right around 30 now.
Yeah,
But
checks out. I hit the
yeah.
wall hard with 30.
And that's a beautiful thing because it's your soul saying, okay, enough's enough. We don't want to be split anymore. We want to be whole.
Mm.
So time to go inward, time to delve below the surface and to explore that part of yourself that you have been avoiding and have not been looking at. And we
Mm.
are so good as human beings. We have a million coping mechanisms. We have busyness, distraction, food, pornography, shopping, retail therapy, all these things that we do as soon as we feel uncomfortable, because it's the transformation is in the emotion. That's what Jung said. As soon as we feel uncomfortable, we're
I
like, oh,
hate Young. No, I don't.
I
But yeah,
know
I
it's
mean, it's
annoying. It's so annoying. I know. Trust
practice.
me.
Yeah,
It's
annoys the
annoying.
crap out of me.
But
Yeah.
as soon as we feel an uncomfortable emotion, like, that introvert example, coming back to that again, if he's in a uncomfortable social situation, what does he do? Tequila. Yeah.
Mm.
And no
Yeah,
judgment,
yeah.
right?
Or
But
Ben and
it's like,
Jerry's, or
right?
yeah,
Or
yeah.
like
No,
we
I
do
mean,
something to like quell that pain instead of and as a coach, I teach people how to feel,
mm,
which is mind-blowing. And in my own life, I didn't really know how to properly feel. Most of us don't really know how to feel
yeah,
without getting sucked into it because we think like, oh my God, if I feel this way, it's never going to end.
yeah.
I will be sucked into it, but it's not true. And so helping them to work
It
with the
lasts
emotion.
around 90 seconds. The
Ah,
that's the scientific
right,
duration of emotions. It has
right.
been tested
Probably
actually in
average.
psychology, so it's really interesting. It's 90
Wow.
seconds. You gotta go
But
through
let's
90 seconds
resist.
of discomfort.
The more we resist the feeling,
Mm,
the longer it lasts because it's
mm,
still under the surface. It wants to come up. It wants your awareness.
yeah.
And then from there, we can see, oh my God, really subscribing to this persona of introvert has been driving my life.
Mm,
And I have the option to choose. And so that's when you start to create yourself
mm,
instead of just
yeah.
defaulting to the identity that, you unconsciously decided when you were 1 or 2, or your, family
Yeah, or in like
dynamic
formative years.
decided
Yeah.
for you. Yeah. And so you start to create yourself and that's free will. That's
Mm.
true free will and empowerment.
Yeah, it's the ultimate empowerment, right? When you actually strip off all the labels and all the things, all the roles and
Because
hats, and
think
you're
of
like, no,
how
this is actually who I am and who I want to be.
Well, and think about how it's limiting your life. See, that's what it does. Remember, the ego does not want you to grow. The ego
Mm.
wants you to stay in your room. Stay in these walls that we have created that have kept you alive, mofo. I have kept you alive for all these years. How
Yeah.
dare you want to cross the threshold? That's what the ego thinks, right? But it's just a part of your mind. It's just protecting you. But imagine how limiting
True.
it is. This is why so many people have the same experiences. I don't know if you've
But
seen.
don't also not like, I feel also not many people realize that they have these confined
Yes,
walls to begin with.
yes. That's what it means by unconscious. Yeah, most people are unconscious. More than
Mm,
90% of the world is unconscious. They're not even aware. They think that,
mm,
oh, my life is supposed to be this way. Oh, I'm supposed to feel kind of half empty and kind of unfulfilled. And this is what I'm saying. It's right around midlife for a lot of people.
mm.
They're
Yeah.
like, and I had so many clients that achieved everything they set out to do in their lives. They're like, got married,
Yeah.
had kids, had an amazing job. I have been successful. I've made millions and this, that, and the other. Why do I feel empty? Why am I not happy? Or worse than that, they're
The
in like,
internal well is not filled with external water.
you got it.
Mm.
Right. And so it's because your soul is like, we need to break down these walls. There's still so much to feel,
Oh.
experience, and to create. And you are not
Mm,
confined to this identity that has carried you for the first half of life.
mm,
You are more. So Jung saw this as we are both the tip of the iceberg and everything underneath the water.
The
We're
whole
not just
fucking
one or
iceberg.
the other. Yeah, we're not just the shadow. It's not like a
Mm.
lot of people like think, oh my God, shadow work, that means like, I'm going to become a bitch or I'm going to become all these things, these traits that I have, avoided and
That
not
are socially not acceptable. Let's call it
right.
what it is, right? Like, I mean, you
Right. And
don't
it's
want to be a bitch because you feel there are social repercussions for being a
repercussions.
bitch.
Absolutely. Or how define what it means to be a bitch, right? And so that's not necessarily true. It's just you face those parts of yourself. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's been limiting my life. Like, for example, think of the person who has been afraid of being quote unquote what they think is a bitch. They're probably not speaking up. They're probably not asking for a raise. They're probably
Mm.
not standing up for themselves. And that energy needs to be released. It needs to be freed. And then and there's physical changes too through this process. Um,
Mm.
People just we start aging backwards. It's because you are embodying more of your divinity, your
Oh,
true
that's beautiful. Mm.
through shadow work. So your shadow is not just the dark parts. They call it a golden shadow. It's like, if someone has identified as being a mathematician their whole life, for example, they say, oh, I've never been creative. Yeah, it's probably in your shadow. And imagine how much more joy, or freedom or creativity you can have even in your mathematics career, for
Mm.
example, if you incorporated a little bit more of that into you. And it's freeing and that energy that is repressed. And that's our conditioning. So for everyone, it can be capital T trauma, it can be little t trauma. I don't use that word trauma. It's a therapeutic word. I'm not a therapist. I call it conditioning, but that is in our energetic field. We're
Yeah.
carrying it since childhood. So we attract certain situations, like attracts like. So we attract more of those situations. So the more you release that energy, the more you integrate those repressed part of yourselves, that repressed emotional energy, then you are lighter, you are freer, you become healthier. All of a sudden, my allergies started to heal. Certain issues, physical issues I had started to heal on their own. It's because
Mm.
we are embodying more of our true self, our divinity.
Yes. And I remember one of my moments where I'm like, something's gotta change was like the same shit kept happening,
There you go.
right? Same attract same. I'm like, why? Why? Dear, ugh. So no, okay, we're gonna do something different now. And
There you go. That was it for me as well. That's how I got into
Mhm.
this work, is that it was a moment where I'm like, wait a minute, the same types of bosses, the same types of careers, the same
Yeah,
salary,
the
keep
same
hitting
boyfriends or the same.
same dates. Yeah,
Mhm.
same relationships over and over again. I'm like, I'm the common denominator.
That's a hard realization. That's a tough
Yeah.
pill to swallow.
Most people don't even reach that first level. And that's okay. You don't need to in order to transform your life, but
We're
through
not
the
shaming, blaming anything. That's not. It's not our game.
But this is another thing another perk that comes with this process of individuation, which was Jung's approach to enlightenment, essentially, um, is the perk of autonomy, complete,
Mm.
full autonomy. But in order to have autonomy, you need to be accountable for your life, for everything in it. everything you're creating. That's how powerful we are.
Mm.
That's how powerful we are. We're
Yeah,
creators.
you gotta own up.
Yeah. Because you
Mm.
can then change it. That's the beauty of it. You have the power to change it
Mm.
and to break the cycle.
Okay, so if anyone who's still listening to us talking about shadow work probably has the one question now. Okay, Shadi, tell us how we can begin that process of integrating our shadow into our conscious self.
So the best way, there's three ways specifically. One is everyone is your mirror. Anyone, okay, it's two parts to this. First part is anyone who we judge, anyone we're judging, like, oh, they're
She's
so
such a
self,
bitch.
yeah, or a bit, whatever.
Yeah.
A person is so selfish. Like we can't. That judgment is caused by some emotional charge in us, right? We see something, we see an image online, or we have an encounter with a friend or a boss or
Yeah.
a
And we have a
stranger.
strong reaction, right? When we're like,
Have, right, a reaction to it.
mm,
That is a telltale sign
mm,
that's pointing to your shadow. So if you have a judgment about somebody, usually what you're judging about them is something that it doesn't mean you are that thing, but it means that you are not free to, you're not letting yourself have permission to be that thing or explore it or
so
face
you're
it.
resenting it if you see someone else living that.
Right.
Makes
You're
sense. Yes.
forcing it. You're not allowing your conditioning, how you were raised, the beliefs you took on. It's self-imposed, right? Of course, we're children. We don't know. We're just trying to survive. But those walls, you're hitting up against that wall, that boundary.
Mm.
And so that's one way. Another way is that just even in a conflict of, with usually when we have a conflict and both people are going at it, that is reflecting something that we wants to be looked at in our unconscious. Our soul is saying, hey, I want to bring this to awareness. I want to heal
Mm.
this. I want to bring it to awareness. And then another way is really and what we're attracting. So the results we're attracting. So for example,
The same
uh,
shit happening over and over again.
my
Pardon.
ex had kept, this is really unusual. This was an extreme case. He had like 3 accidents in 1 month, like
Wow.
either a car accident or somebody hit one of his cars in the parking lot, or somebody hit one of his corporate like company vehicles. And I was like, wait a minute, 3 times in 1 month. I'm like, there's something going on here. And I'm
Yeah.
like, so with that, it's wanting to purge, quote unquote, an emotion. There's something you are repressing or not looking
Mm.
at in yourself. So typically in that situation, that would cause anger, right? If you keep running into this, or it might cause maybe
I mean,
safety.
I was angry when that happened to me, and the same thing happened over and over again. I'm like, and
Car
then
accident?
resentment because I'm a resentful bitch.
Wait. Was it a car accident or what
No, no,
happened?
no, not a car accident. No. It was not an
A repetitive
accident.
situation?
Repetitive situations. Yeah. And
Oh,
I'm
let's
like,
talk about it. You want to go there?
uh, yeah. Um, hey, it was,
What kept happening that was
um,
a
yeah. Well, one, it was funny. I didn't really connect all the dots at the time, but now I know. Like, I was in the how to unravel this. This is basically the
one
outcome of
incident.
like, yeah.
One incident.
I
Doesn't have
had
to
a
be.
I had a boss. I don't do well with female bosses. I
Mm.
always had the kind of thing where they were like, I mean, Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada looks
Ooh,
like the nice little sister
damn.
to the female bosses I've had. So, and then I'm like, okay, why is this like keep on happening?
Mhm.
Until I also kind of looked at my relationship with my mother.
There you go.
When
Mhm.
I was a child, when I had my kid, I was like, and then sort of things clicked and made sense.
Yeah.
Um, and now I'm like, oh, okay. I
Mhm.
see some things emerging, but that was um that was really a tough pill also because I'm like, yes, I'm a feminist. Yes, like go women in power, like leadership positions, woohoo. And
That's
then
your
it like,
persona. That's
yeah.
the identity you took on for your whole life. Yeah.
And then like you're screwing me over. Thanks.
And then to like have this resentment towards women at the same time, that's in your shadow. And then they keep showing up in our bosses. We project it. So that's how it shows up. That's what I mean by
Mm.
whatever we repress. I forgot the very important part. That's one way that the shadow hides itself.
Yeah.
Does not. The ego does not want us to discover our shadow. So the way it discovers it, that's why I said everyone is our mirror.
Mm.
It projects. So it's projecting what we have repressed, rejected, or denied in ourselves. Or in your case, our caregivers are the first line of experience that we have with the world, right?
Yes.
So the female represents it becomes an internalized, the mother becomes our internalized mother, the internalized voice that we have towards ourselves. So whatever
Yeah.
relationship we have with our mother
It's how we
becomes
parent our
internalized.
inner toddler.
Right. And it reflects our relationship with the world. So
Mm.
with other women, with colleagues, with projects, just how we interact with the
Collaboration and community,
physical
basically.
world,
Mm.
everything physical, money. People think that money is the
Oh,
masculine. Money, material things. The physical world is our perception of the physical world and how we show up with it and how we engage with it is, until we do shadow work, is dictated by our relationship with our mother and how we perceived it and how we internalized it. Remember, it's just a perception because at toddler ages, we're just seeing the world and we're going based on what feels good, what doesn't feel good, what
yeah.
feels safe, feels unsafe. So if we observe, as a toddler, your mother, the phone rings, she leaves the room to get the phone. We think, oh my God, my mother is leaving me forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Think of
yeah.
your,
Everything that
right?
happens when you're a child is like
So it
feels
becomes
like an
like,
eternity.
I
Mm.
can't trust, I can't trust my mother. She's going to leave me. And so there begins the conditioning process, right? And so we grow up unconscious to that dynamic that exists in us and we project it out into the world. But it's beautiful because we are meant to. We are meant to forget who we are. We are meant to have these experiences and to go through this process of becoming split and then whole again. That's the grand human experiment. So it's why we're here. It's to
So you did
learn,
nothing wrong. You're right on track. All is good.
right? It's all perfect. Yeah, it's unfolding exactly as it should. So like even the person who keeps having the same experiences with the bosses like yourself, like you said, those experiences are just showing you where you want to be healed inside,
Yeah.
to change that dynamic
Mm.
internally first. And then typically another thing is people's relationships with their parents heal through this process, usually, because they're healing it internally and we project it into. So when it
Yeah.
heals internally, then we project a healthier model and dynamic and more autonomy. We own our shit because once you start owning your shit, boundaries become natural, organic, just they
Yeah,
organic,
they're non-negotiable. There's something you
right?
don't even talk about because they're just
Right?
there.
They
Like,
need
what?
to.
Yeah.
When you start owning your side of the street, no longer blaming other people or saying, no, it's that person, then other people can only respond in the same way or they fall away.
Mm-hmm.
And so our relationship with our father, um, our dynamic with our father,
Mm-hmm.
during childhood up until age 7 or 8, that's when the unconscious mind, the shadow side, the self is formed. That represents our relationship to our spirituality and to God or source,
Oh.
whatever you want to call it, or religion. So, yeah, oh, it's deep stuff. It's fun.
Yeah, I mean, you blew my mind before when you said the perception of the physical world is dictated by our relationship with our mother. And I'm like, that
Yeah.
checks out. Okay, so and our relationship with our father is the
Mhm.
relation is kind of like how we perceive spirituality, God and
And
source and all the
authority.
non-physical.
Yeah, think of like the most loving father, right? If you
Yeah.
grew up with the most loving father, then you feel rooted, you feel safe, you feel secure, you feel provided for, emotionally, spiritually, and
I
then
don't
you
think
can.
that rings true for anyone who has boomer parents though.
I know. Well, again, like I said, we were meant to be conditioned. Trust me, I know that generation. Yeah. And because they went through their shit too,
Oh,
remember?
I'm not. Yep.
They
Like,
went through their shit. So
absolutely.
then
They went absolutely
they
100%
created
through
their
their shit.
defenses and their identities. And they were like, we're not going to do the work. And that's
We're
for
just gonna
sissies.
chill.
Yeah. And so, no, what I'm describing is the ideal.
Mm.
Ideal. And so I take my clients through a visualization process when they are doing this healing work with the father or with the masculine. So that becomes, as women, that becomes our internalized masculine. Our our
Mm.
and there is a shadow side to the masculine. So what do? We project that. So then that
Mm.
shows our dynamic with men in our lives. The relationship that we perceive to have with the first man, our father, if any relationship, many people didn't even have a relationship, right? That becomes internalized. And we carry that and we assume it to be true of all men. And then we project that experience over and over and over again until we do the work and we start to realize that we can take back that projection, we can take our power back, and we can evolve the inner man and make him divine or make him ideal. And it's deep. I mean, it's deep. It's not just about the external man, it's about healing the internal father that lives in you.
So I suppose for you, or I mean, for anyone going through the work, but for also for you, your relationship went with spirituality basically changed
Evolve
massively, I suppose.
massively.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because and I had resistance. We were talking about resistance. I had resistance as a coach, incorporating. So, and that was shaped by my conditioning. So it all comes back to our conditioning. What is our perception of spirituality, religion,
Yeah.
God, whatever it is. As an Iranian American, my family fled what became the Islamic regime, right?
Hmm.
They fled this idea of Islam to for a better life, right? So I grew up in a very secular household. Most Iranians that you meet in, who have the diaspora who have left, they are pretty secular for that reason because they were like, this is not compatible with our
Yeah,
values.
we're see the
We're not
signs,
on
we're reading the
board,
signs. No.
right?
Mm.
So I grew up no, I don't want to say with a negative view, but that was my takeaway. It's like,
But an
wow,
overly critical
religion
view of
sucks.
Islam, probably.
Just yeah, and just
Mm.
cannot trust it. And anyone who is
Mm.
religious has an agenda. It's funny because now on the other side, I can say, well, I probably knew. I knew. My gut knew, because religion has been exploited. But this is not about religion. But that
Yeah.
colored my
Religion, spirituality doesn't have an agenda. It's people who bring it into and then
right.
misuse it, misguide it.
Right. And so
Mm.
that colored my connection with God or a connection with the creator or source or
Mm.
this unseen energy. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to, it's not the bearded man in the sky. It's the unseen. It's the
Mm.
unseen force that lives within us. And so that is the resistance that I had was I did not want to incorporate spirituality into my work. I didn't want to be public about it. I didn't want to talk about it. It's
Mm.
because of my own um, perceptions of a coach. I didn't want to be like woo woo and spiritual and like not be taken seriously about this energetic force that lives in all of
Mm.
us. And it was only when I healed my inner masculine that things also started to change externally, as well as, and I started to own my own spirituality and own
Mm.
it and figure out how I wanted to show it and how I wanted to express it
And
and
pass it on in conversations and coachings
right,
and
Right.
Mm.
And it's funny because the word, idea of being spiritual never even crossed my mind. I didn't even see myself as spiritual, but I would have friends and family be like, "Oh, you're just so spiritual." I'm like, "I am." Like to me, it was just nature. Like it's just like to meditate, to
To
have
be.
stillness.
Yeah.
Is it's part of being on this planet. It's part of staying rooted. It didn't mean that I was like praying every night, on the foot of my bed, or I just had this idea of like what it meant to be spiritual. It meant that you had to be conforming to a religion or you had to be praying to something specific, and it's not. It's just this unseen energy. And then I started doing energy work as well, which is very spiritual. And
Mm-hmm.
if you asked me a few years ago if I would have ever been doing something like that, I'd be like, you're out of your mind. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But it's owning that part of myself that I had repressed.
Hmm. That reminds me of when I first when I was also on my journey and trying different things, and I was like, this. Then I heard about sound healing, and I'm like, this shit sounds weird. Like, what? Just some stupid chick banging on a bong, right? And then I'm like, you know what? Let's do it just for once. Let's be curious. And I was sobbing through like the whole like 35 minutes of the energy healing because I don't know, clearly it did something. It moved a lot of
Uh,
shit.
well, and it's interesting that there was a part of you that was like curious about it. So
Mm.
that's your soul. Your soul is like, oh, like your ego may have judgments about this, but I know what's good for you. Let's try it.
Yeah, my telltale sign is curiosity. Whenever I feel curious
Yeah.
for something,
For intuition. Yeah.
yeah, then that's one of the telltale signs where I'm be like, okay, I'm
This will be
listening.
because
You
there's
got my
something to
attention.
learn. There's
Yeah,
something to learn. Yeah. That's
absolutely.
beautiful. That's beautiful.
Thank
Good.
you. What is what kind of practices or rituals have you found helpful in your shadow work journey?
Um, so there's a point where the shadow work is no longer necessary. Like you can't stay doing shadow work forever. It's just the entry point. So it's the
Oh,
entry point. Yeah. And that's something
so
that a
you're
lot of,
like you're evolved to ninja level now.
well, it's not just me. I take my clients through it too because we can get stuck. There's some coaches that only do shadow work.
Oh,
And it's like you're
okay.
you're in the dark place for a long freaking time. And I got caught there too. And you're not creating anything new. You need to create something new. You need to create new experiences, maybe new salary, you become a effortless manifester, but you have to go to the other side. So I don't really have rituals anymore, but what I would recommend for people that are just beginning to do shadow work is the curiosity angle. Jennifer, you hit it right on the nose, is to look at all of the disturbances that come up for us or the conflicts that come up for us or things that
Mm.
rub us the wrong way or have this emotional charge. Just look at it with curiosity and be like, why does this bother me so much? What is, because that's your ego defending
Yeah,
something.
the bothering. Mm.
It's your ego is like the defense shoots up. And so often I ask my clients, like, what emotion is this evoking out of you? And they'll say, grief or anger, whatever comes up. And I say, well, what is that defending? What is the anger
Yeah,
defending?
what is that emotion defending? Oh, that's a beautiful question. Yeah.
Because it's just your defense mechanism coming into place. That's the bouncer at the door saying, nope, we don't want to go here. And so like I get excited. I get like when I trigger people or if people trigger me, I'm like, all right, we're getting to the gold. Like I get excited because I know that's pointing to something in the unconscious.
Mm.
And so that's where the gold is, because the more you release that energy, the more the iceberg comes above water, the more free you become to create your desires that are aligned with your soul, not your ego, not your conditioning, not your fear, not the past, not what your parents told you what you should be doing or who you should be or who you thought,
Mm.
in a survival mode. You free yourself from survival mode so you can thrive.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That feels like a very, very beautiful way or words to end this podcast. But I have this very strong urge, and you know, I know Shadi will tell me now. Just go with your urge. I want to tell you about my weird dream. Do you want to hear it?
Let's do it. So I was going to say another way to the triggers and how you judge people are two ways to assess what's in your unconscious. But
Mm-hmm.
dreams, yes, dreams are also telling us what is in our unconscious
Ooh.
mind.
Okay, okay. Tell me what's in my unconscious mind. Haha. Okay, so, okay, I'm way too excited for this. The dream was weird, but you're gonna love this. Okay, so I was in in an apartment, and it kind of looked like an old apartment my partner and I used to live in, but not very specific. And there was like a very big spider, very big scary spiders. I'm not usually scared of spiders, but that one was too big. So I asked my partner to help me like get it out. And then he kind of like got it out. Um and I was going into one room and closed the door, and then he's like, "Oh, okay, you can come out." Like the spider got into its it looked like a wreath of dried flowers. Very beautiful. And it kind of like went into that. And then he was trying to like shake the spider out of that wrath. And there were, instead of the spider, several dead birds fell out. And I was like, oh, what are all these dead birds doing on the floor? Where are they coming from? And then I was looking into the wreath of dried flowers, and I saw there was a nest inside of the wreath with two little birds and a couple of eggs. And
Ooh,
then I woke up.
ooh, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it was weird.
So
I was
did
waking up.
you, so you said the spider crawled into the wreath of flowers
Yes,
and
yes.
you followed the spider there and that's what you saw. Okay. So the spider represents the dark, divine feminine. So it is the ultimate. So if you think of feminine, the when I say feminine, by the way, I don't mean gender.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an energetic property. So, and it exists in all of us. It's yin, right? So
Mm,
it's the yin energy in us. And this is in ancient philosophies, ancient cultures, as well as we all have inner feminine, we all have inner masculine. But if we are born as women, then we may, or actually any gender, if we're born as any gender, we may choose to be more of one than another, and we repress the other.
yeah.
So this divine feminine energy, it's Mother Earth. Mother Earth is both creative and destructive. Okay. So the divine feminine has the power to destroy and
Who build?
destroy things that are no longer useful or the past paradigms, or in this case, our conditioning that we're purging, we're releasing.
Mm,
It's, even in indigent cultures, they believed anytime nature, Mother Earth would show up with hurricanes, destructive tornadoes. It's like, oh, Earth is cleansing itself.
mm,
It's a purification process. Okay, so that's what a spider represents. It's the ultimate destroyer, but also the creator. So we have that power within us. Okay,
mm,
so here's one trick. Two tricks, actually. First trick is that I would recommend for you and for anyone else is write down your dreams. So have a journal by your bed and a pen. Even if you're like, oh, I never dream, I never remember my dreams. You dream every night. We have about 3 to 6 dreams every night. And if you set the intention to remember your dreams, you're going to remember them. And as soon as you wake up, write down the symbols, write down what happened, like you just told me, write down the emotions. That's really important, the feeling that you had. And even if you don't know what it meant, even if it sounds crazy and you're like, I don't know how to decipher this, just writing it down is bringing the iceberg above water. It is
mm,
entering into your awareness, okay?
mm,
And your mind, it's starting to shift things. All right, you're unconscious. The iceberg is like kind of moving, it's bobbling up, right? So that was one trick. Next trick is that everything in our dream is reflecting an aspect of ourselves. So the spider represents the dark, divine, feminine. So it is the shadow side of our femininity. It is the part of ourselves that we repress. And
mm,
it's guiding you to this wreath of flowers. Flowers is abundance, it's joy, it's beauty, right? It's transformation. It's your true self. And the dying birds are associated with spirituality. So if they're dying, if they dropped, so there's sort of a death of the old paradigm,
Mm.
right? Our old beliefs and our old perceptions, like what I was telling you that I went through, right? About my perceptions of religion and God and spirituality. It's like that kind of had to fall away. It feels
To
like
make
death.
room for something
Yeah,
new, for a new paradigm, for some new
there
ways
you
of
go.
believing. Mm.
And in the sense of death, it feels like death. It's not a real death. It's not like that part of you is dying. It's just that the ego is like, but these beliefs that we have is what has kept us alive. I don't want to
Mm.
let it go, you know?
Yeah, it's
It's
clingy.
the way it's ushering out. So to me, what you saw in the spider is uncovering the dark side. It's not really dark, but the hidden aspects of your feminine nature, yourself, your shadow is going to guide you to transforming your perspective of spirituality and creating something new, birthing something new.
Mm.
Two eggs. Eggs is birth. Is birth of something new, right? You said the
Hmm.
nest. And the fact that it was two, it wasn't just one.
No, it
Two
was there were
symbolizes,
at least two eggs. Yeah.
two symbolizes wholeness. So that path is
Mm.
leading you to wholeness, which also the flowers represent joy, abundance. So wholeness meaning yin and yang. When yin and yang come together, we create a wholeness. We become a whole being, our true self. And so that was a guidance dream for you.
Ooh, thank you so much for deciphering this for me.
You're
Oh,
welcome.
I'm very excited about this dream
So
now.
write down your dreams, start writing them down,
Yeah,
even if it doesn't make sense. Um,
that's a good
and
tip. Yes.
yeah,
Always
something
keep
to start
the
starting to
little
shift.
notepad.
Hmm.
Mm. Okay, so
Do you have more
we've
questions?
learned. No,
They're
yeah, like
interrelated.
my mind is spinning in a lot of different places, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're gonna bring Shadi back on for another episode sometime. Uh, and I'm
Yeah, this
still
is a lot.
quite, yeah,
This is
it
a
is a
lot.
lot.
It's a lot.
And this is all fair. So if you're still following us, like give yourself a clap on the back for this because it was a lot. And I'm still hung up on the what you said on the perception of the physical world is dictated by our relationship with our mother. And I'm like, but I have so many questions around like how we see money and our relationship to our mother. But we're gonna talk about money another time because I feel
Sure.
that's a whole conversation
I
on
love it.
its own.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but for anyone who cannot wait until I bring Shadi back on the podcast, where can they find you online? Where you hang out?
So, well, I'm going to be starting my own podcast. Heads up.
Woo!
So, yeah, and it's going to be called
Exciting.
This Life Fulfilled. So that is my handle. That is my Instagram handle. You can find me on Instagram, This Life Fulfilled. And I am actually offering for your listeners only, exclusively, whoever, first of all, I give complimentary shadow sessions. So the first session with me, if you want to know what's keeping you stuck, if you want to know why you keep creating the same situations, if you feel like you're Groundhog's Day, this circular thing constantly, you just can't get out of it, you're trapped. I offer a complimentary shadow session. We can find out what is keeping you from the ultimate soul level relationship or career, whatever it is. And whoever among your listeners signs up, through my link. I think I sent the link to you so you can share it through
We'll
your
surely
link.
link it in the show notes. Yes.
Thank you. If you schedule a session with me, a shadow work session with me, I'm going to send you a free meditation / visualization on releasing your fear to get unstuck.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Good.
Okay. Thank you so much for being so generous. And this sounds so good, I might snag it up myself. But
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like there's some more work here to do with the spider. The spider's leading you there. So you want to pull at
uh,
it and go under.
yeah,
With the
maybe.
the who would you say who was the name of the guy?
Haran.
Sharon Caron
Haran, yeah.
with
Yeah.
Karen
I'll
Khan
see if
there.
he guides me over the river.
Yeah, for sure. Of course you will. That's your destiny.
That is very true. It will all unfold how it's supposed to be
Yep,
in its own time, and that
that's
is
right.
okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Shadi, before I let you go,
Mhm.
I always have one last question. What book are you currently reading? What audiobook you're currently listening to?
Okay, so I'm an Aries. We love to start things and not finish them. So I'm reading three books. Is it three? It might be even four
I
books.
love it.
Um, and
Brilliant.
I always bounce back and forth. So depending on my mood, depending on where my head's at. So I'm reading this incredible book that I highly recommend to anyone who's feeling this right now. It's called Dark Nights of the Soul by Thomas More. He was a Jungian analyst. Finding your way through life's ordeals. So we all experience dark nights of the soul. The dark night is when we hit it, it's because it's signaling us for transformation. Our soul is ready to transform. So I love this book. There's so much gold in this, and I'm going to do a podcast episode on this book alone. Another book that I'm reading is called Karma, A Yogi's Guide to Crafting Your Destiny. And it's by Sadhguru, who is a very famous, I think, Hindu philosopher.
Oh, that's very good. I'm also I also read several books at a time, depending on mood. And sometimes I just really love reading series because then I know what book I'm going to read next. I don't have to do the work of figuring out which book I want to read next. And I've also started collecting the books my awesome guests are reading, and they're all on the book recommendation page of the Scenic Route podcast. We're going to link it as well. So it's full library of fiction, nonfiction, all sort of books that my awesome guests are reading. So I'm always kind of like sneaking there for like, oh, what should I read next? Oh, yes, this is speaking to me now.
Oh, a wonderful idea. Wow, sharing the wisdom of others. Amazing.
Yeah, and if I don't know, if cool people, usually in my experience, cool people like read cool stuff. So, and we also have like weird medieval romance novels on there, which is cool. If that's your jam, then you do you.
Well, today, this morning, I heard a Britney Spears song and I was thinking to myself, I still haven't read her book and I want to read it. So I want to hear about
I
her
haven't
experience.
either. Yeah, I haven't either. And that is very true. I definitely, it's definitely on my biography pile. I must
Yeah.
say, my bio I also like I have a pile of biography books, and I still only halfway through with the one I started. That was Prince Harry's book Spare.
Yes, that's also, I haven't finished it. That's another one I
I
started. I haven't
Yeah,
finished it.
I'm like I'm
I'm
somewhere
halfway.
stuck where he was in Africa, and
Yes, me too. I'm like, I got enough out of this.
girl, same. I'm like, I cannot bring myself to finish it, and I don't force myself to finish books
Yeah.
because there will be a time and place where I probably pick it up again. But for
Yeah.
now, I'm good.
Yeah. I mean, I'll eventually finish it. When I'll see something about Princess Diana and I'll be like, oh, and then I'll like want to finish Harry's book. Yeah.
Absolutely same. We're also gonna put Britney's
What are you reading
memoir.
right now?
Oh dear Lord. I started a novel actually just last night, and it's called Margot's Got Money Problems.
Oh,
And I don't know, it was
the
not, I just
comedy.
started. It's by Rufy Thorpe, and I didn't
Okay.
really expect that it was about um someone like a single mother. But hey, that's how it started. So I was immediately hooked, I must say. It started with a penis-shaped cake, and I'm like, this is very weird. And the lady who baked the cake for Margot even built in like a cream slash sperm pump into the penis cake. So I was immediately like, okay, this book is so weird and fantastic. I'm gonna keep on reading.
I
So
think, yeah, it sounds like it's meant to kind of have some humor in your life, I think. Inject some
yeah,
humor. I need.
absolutely. So Margot's Got Money Troubles by Rufi Thorpe.
Hilarious.
Shadi, Thank you so, so much for sharing your wisdom with us on the Scenic Route podcast. It was an absolute pleasure to have you.
Oh, it was a pleasure to be here. You are such a enlightened soul yourself, Jennifer. You have so much wisdom, and it's an honor really to share this show with you today. Thank you.
And just like that, we've reached the end of another journey together on the Scenic Route podcast. Thank you for spending time with us. Curious for more stories or in search of the resources mentioned in today's episode? Visit us at scenicroutepodcast.com for everything you need. And if you're ready to embrace your scenic route, I've got something special for you. Step off the beaten path with my Scenic Route affirmation card deck. It's crafted for those moments when you're seeking courage, yearning to trust your inner voice, and eager to carve out a path authentically, unmistakably yours. Pick your Scenic Route affirmation today and let it support you. Excited about where your journey might lead? I certainly am. Remember, the Scenic Route is not just about the destination, but the experiences, learnings, and joy we discover along the way. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you on the Scenic Route again.